Living things can be found in almost every part of the earth. Many kinds of living things are so small we are unable to see them without a microscope. Thousands of the very smallest can live in a drop of water. More than 1 million forms of life have been identified. Each is different from all the others in some way, and yet each form of life has things in common with other life forms. When living things are alike or related in a certain way, we can study them as a group. Animals are one group of life. Animals are divided into two types: animals with backbones and animals without backbones. Animals without a backbone are not as complex as animals with a backbone. The backbone is part of a skeleton of bones inside the animal. This skeleton helps to support the body and to protect the brain, the heart, and other important inner body parts. The backbone is actually made of many bones called vertebrae. That is why animals with a backbone are called vertebrates. The vertebrate animals are divided into 5 groups or classes: fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals are the 5 classes of vertebrates. Fish, amphibians, and reptiles are said to be cold-blooded. That is, their body temperature is about the same as their environment. To survive in winter, cold-blooded animals must find a sheltered spot where there is some protection from the cold. Fish spend the winter in the water beneath the ice. Amphibians rest all winter in the mud at the bottom of streams and ponds beneath the ice. This snake will stay here during the winter until the weather becomes warm again. The other 2 classes of vertebrate animals are birds and mammals. These 2 groups are warm-blooded. Warm-blooded means that their bodies are kept warm from the inside, using the energy from the food they eat. Birds and mammals usually keep the same warm body temperature regardless of the outside temperature. Most warm-blooded animals stay active in winter as long as they can find enough food to maintain a warm body temperature. Nearly all mammals have a body covering of hair, and many have thick coats of fur and wool that keeps heat from escaping in cold weather. Birds have a body covering of feathers. Feathers do a very good job of holding in body heat. Mammals like porpoise, dolphins, manatee, and whales have very little hair, but they have a thick layer of fat that holds in their body heat. Fish are the lowest order of animals with backbones or vertebrae. Fish are very adapted to living in water. They are streamlined and have a tail and fins, which they use to move through the water. Fish get their oxygen from the water in which they live. They gulp in water, which passes over gills inside of their mouths. The gills get oxygen from the water and release carbon dioxide into the water. The water leaves through openings on the sides of their heads. The bodies of most fish are protected by scales. Scales are made from material something similar to fingernails. Almost all fish hatch from eggs and are not protected by their parents. Fish spend all their lives in water. Amphibians are another group in the animal family. Amphibians spend only part of their lives in water. Frogs, toads, and salamanders are all amphibians. Many adult amphibians, including frogs, live on land, but they live near fresh water. Amphibians must lay their eggs in fresh water. The word amphibian means two lifestyles, part in water and part on land. Young amphibians have gills and receive oxygen from water. In this stage of life, they are called tadpoles or pollywogs. Most amphibians do not protect their young. Many tadpoles are eaten by predators. The survivors undergo changes known as metamorphosis. As the tadpole gets larger, it develops legs. First the back legs, then the front legs, and eventually the tail is absorbed by the body. The tadpole is becoming an air-breathing animal with lungs. Frogs and toads are amphibians without tails when they become adults. Other adult amphibians, the salamanders, have a different body and retain their tails as adults. An adult amphibian is more complicated than a fish. Legs are more complex than fins, and breathing with lungs requires a heart able to pump a great deal of blood constantly. An amphibian can leave the water, but must keep its skin moist. This moist skin allows an amphibian to get some of its oxygen through its skin. Amphibians must live in a moist environment to keep their skin and eggs moist. Because amphibians are cold-blooded, they are not active in cold weather. Amphibians are vertebrate animals that live on land only in the adult stage, so they are not considered true land animals. Reptiles were the first true land animals with backbones. Snakes are reptiles. The outer skin of a reptile is a tough, dry covering to protect the reptile from drying out. Many reptiles have skin made of hard scales. Turtles have a hard shell made of tough plates to protect their bodies. Gila monsters are poisonous lizards living in the Southwest. The hard, protective outer covering allows some reptiles to live in a desert environment. Reptiles are cold-blooded vertebrates. Reptiles are unable to live in extremely cold regions, but are found almost every other place. Alligators and crocodiles are always found near water. Alligators spend some time on land warming and drying themselves in the sun. When it becomes too hot, they slide into the water. Sea turtles are among the few reptiles able to live in the ocean. Almost all reptiles reproduce by laying eggs on land. The eggs have a tough, rubbery covering to protect them from drying out. Most reptile eggs are left unguarded, and when the eggs hatch, the young must survive on their own. All reptiles have lungs and breathe air. Their lungs are more efficient than the lungs of amphibians. The heart of a reptile is also more complex and does a better job of pumping oxygen-rich blood to every part of the reptile's body. Reptiles are the most complex of the cold-blooded vertebrates. Even though they don't look alike, in some ways the body of a reptile is very similar to the body of a bird. Birds are another class of vertebrate animals, or animals with backbones. Unlike reptiles, birds are warm-blooded animals, and most birds can fly. Birds are the only animals with feathers, and when a bird flies, the wing feathers form a broad, lightweight surface that pushes against the air and moves the bird up and forward. Birds are able to live in almost every kind of environment. Some stay on the ground, others in trees, and many spend most of their time on the water. Because they are warm-blooded, birds can live in very cold climates. Penguins can live in the cold parts of the southern hemisphere, even on the continent of Antarctica. All birds lay eggs, and nearly all birds guard their eggs and keep them warm until they hatch. Almost all young birds are cared for by their parents. Birds form one class of warm-blooded vertebrate animals. Mammals form another class of warm-blooded animals. As a group, mammals take the greatest care of their young. Almost all mammals carry their young within the mother's body for the first part of the young's life. After the young are born, they get milk from the mother and are protected by one or both parents. There are many different kinds of mammals, and they can be found in almost every environment on Earth. Some live on the land, while others live in the water, but breathe air, and some, like bats, are able to fly. Nearly all mammals have hair on their bodies. Mammals have very efficient hearts and lungs. Mammals have complex brains and nervous systems. The mammals with the most highly developed brains are the primates, such as monkeys, apes, and people. Primates are the highest order of the vertebrates, or animals with backbones. There are 5 classes of vertebrates: fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals.